Hello again, Richard Hibbard back again with another part of this video, and now we're ready to kick things off with Season 5, which is another one of my most favorite seasons of the show, and also the first season to be narrated by Alec Baldwin for American releases. Okay, first off, I will not tolerate any comments that involves the Rush shooting incident because I'm just not in the mood to talk about it, and it literally has nothing to do with Thomas the Tank Engine. Anyways, Alec Baldwin has always been another one of my most favorite Thomas narrators as a kid, and he even played as Mr. Conductor in Thomas and the Magic Railroad. This season introduced us to some new characters such as Cranky the Crane, the Horrid Lorries, Derek the Diesel, Ari and Bert, Bectram, and of course, Old Slow Coach. Oh, and this season was also the final season that was produced by Britt Allcroft, which she left the show after Thomas and the Magic Railroad has failed in box offices. Okay, time to start ranking the episodes from the first season to have Alec Baldwin as narrator.
His name is Cranky, and this was his first day at the docks. "You're useless little bugs," he called from above. "If you put these freight cars on the inside lines, then I wouldn't have so far to travel." "Rubbish," said Thomas. "No crane has ever complained before." "Well, I'm complaining now." And Cranky banged his load down on the quayside. Later, the two engines met Gordon and James and told them about Cranky.
"Cranes are airy-fairy things. They need a lot of attention, like me, in fact," said Gordon.
"You should see the situation from Cranky's point of view," said James. "He's high up in the air, coping with wind, rain, and baking sun. Then he looks down and sees you two little engines being annoying. No wonder he calls you bugs." Then Butch, the breakdown vehicle, arrived. He was towing the lorry from the flour mill. "What happened?" asked Toby's driver. "He was overloaded with flour," came the reply, "and he broke down." "Not very useful now, are you?" said Toby. "Grrr," replied the lorries. Then James whistled excitedly. "They're bringing in the third lorry on a barge." "What happened to that one?" James asked. "Stupid lorry was reversing and fell straight into the sea," said the tow truck man. Later, Thomas arrived. He looked at the three lorries and laughed. Well, 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 the Brothers Grimm. Smashed, broken, and sunk. Then there was trouble. As Gordon approached the new station, neither the driver nor fireman could apply his brakes. Something had jammed. The driver reduced steam, but Gordon was still going too fast.
"Help me, please."
George was enjoying rolling along the lane, but not Sir Topham Hatt. Oil splashed everywhere. Worse was to follow. "Help!" cried George. "Something snapped!" He veered out of control, and Sir Topham Hatt landed in a muddy ditch close to where Thomas was taking on water. "Bother! Bother!" Thomas had never seen Sir Topham Hatt in such a mess. "Can I help you, sir?" asked Thomas's driver. "Yes, please. Get me to the station as fast as you can. I'm afraid our fireman's taken ill." "Then I'll be your fireman," sighed Sir Topham Hatt. Thomas was excited. Then he heard a whistle. "It's Thomas," called his driver. James felt embarrassed and worried that Thomas would laugh at him, but Thomas didn't. He knew this was no time for teasing. "Beep, beep." "I'm ready," whistled Thomas. "So am I," replied James. "As ready as I'll ever be." They were just in time.
"We're late because of Thomas."
Gordon's driver decided to make up for lost time. Then there was trouble. "I think we better slow down. This is an old line and could make things uncomfortable for the VIP." And it did. She was taking a bath and the water was slopping all over the place. "Oh!" she cried. Gordon was very relieved to reach his final destination, where Thomas was waiting to collect Sir Topham Hatt and his special visitor. And he did, a few days later. "Look who's here," said Thomas. George had been found out by Sir Topham Hatt and punished. He looked miserable. "Now we'll get some peace at last," said Percy. "I want to get rolling again, but I've got to wait a whole week till I do." "And then you'll be just as rude as ever. Eh, George?" "I hope not. Don't you?" Then Sir Topham Hatt made an announcement. "There is one more prize for our good friend the Ram. Here it is. And I'll eat my hat if you don't like it." Then Harold landed. The wind from his blades blew Sir Topham Hatt's hat off. Bah! "Well, seems I wouldn't be able to eat my hat even if I had to." Everyone laughed, and the only sound from the Ram was a contented hiccup. "There's going to be an avalanche," wailed Percy. And he was right. Worse still, the track he was on began to crumble. "Oh, help!" wailed Percy. Then he remembered something he had seen earlier. "There's a canvas barrier by the track. That might save us." They were just in time. Percy was right. The canvas did indeed save them, but the miners didn't know that. And they did. To one of Toby's buffers. Just then Percy arrived. Harold flew over to him. "Catch the rope and pull Toby to safety," he called. Toby was safe at last. Then, unknown to Henry, the gates mysteriously closed by themselves, and the signal went red. The freight cars had seen everything, and they were spooked. "Faster, faster! There's a ghost about!" "Stop, stop!" yelled Henry. A mysterious figure watched Henry go by. Ahead was a landslide blocking the line. Henry braked hard, but the freight cars hit some of the rubble and plunged into the ravine. All went well as they set off. Then they came to a hill. Come on! Push harder, you silly diesel!" shouted Ben. But the diesel couldn't push any harder. "I'm overheating again." "Oh, Pa!" snorted Bill. Stepney looked up. Above him was a huge grabber. "This engine's not for scrapping!" The grabber wasn't listening. But just as it was about to grab hold of him, it stopped. There stood Sir Topham Hatt. "It's a good thing I'm visiting this yard tonight. Saving you from scrap is becoming a habit, Stepney. Please stop it." "Yes, sir. But I have learned something." "What's that?" "There's no place like home." "And that's exactly where you're going now." "Bluebells forever." Quite suddenly, he heard a strange wheezing sound. "It's the ghost!" he wailed. "What ghost?" his driver asked. "It's the old warrior. He's come to hunt me down." "Don't be so daft. We'll go and investigate." They returned quite soon. "The old warrior wants to meet you," laughed his fireman. "Can't it wait till morning?" replied Toby. "Ghosts don't work day shifts," said his driver. Toby bravely made his way. "Well, bless my bell," he exclaimed. There, in front of him, was a little old engine. "This is your ghost, Toby," said the signalman. "His name's really Bertram, but we call him the Old Warrior because he's so brave." The signalman couldn't hear the warning. By the time he did, Henry was far away in a cloud of steam. But when Henry reached the coastal track, his hopes for a fast run were dashed. Fog floated everywhere. "I can't see," cried Henry, nor could his driver. And when he could, it was too late. Fire engines had a big problem. "We are completely out of water," cried a fireman. "We can't use seawater because it clogs our works. We'll just have to let that building burn." Then Thomas had an idea. "Why don't you use the water in our tanks? We've just refilled them." The firemen wasted no time. "You're very clever engines," chuckled their drivers. Later, Thomas pulled Gordon clear with the breakdown train. Sir Topham Hatt spoke severely to Gordon's driver. "Will Gordon be scrapped, sir?" asked Thomas sadly. "What makes you think that?" said Sir Topham Hatt. Thomas decided to pluck up courage. "Because the engines think the visitor is here to see if we can be replaced by Harold." Sir Topham Hatt laughed. "Well, the engines are wrong, and you shouldn't listen to rumors, Thomas. This gentleman is making a new playground for the children. It was easier to find a suitable site from up in the air." "And what's more," said the visitor, "that tunnel sand will be perfect for the playground. Sand we found by accident, you might say." Then he saw something. It was an empty old house beside the station. He went to inspect it. When he returned, he spoke to Oliver. "You have found another attraction for our island. We'll make this house as good as new, and visitors can have tea and crumpets there." Sighed Oliver. "Getting lost can be interesting, but being found is much nicer, especially when it makes an engine feel really useful." When the bride and groom left the church for the party, Sir Topham Hatt addressed everybody. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I present the good luck package. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. All found by Percy and his crew." The engines whistled and everyone cheered. "Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Percy," said the bride. "It's the best good luck package ever." And she kissed Percy. Thomas laughed as Percy blushed bright red. The family were enjoying themselves so much that they forgot to watch where they were going. "Oh, botheration," said Sir Topham Hatt. "We're stuck." And they were. Other boats tried to pull them off the mud bank, but it was no use. Percy saw the commotion and stopped. "Is there anything we can do to help?" called his driver. Yes, indeed there is. This is the life, isn't it, my dear? The chase was on. As they approached the hill, they overtook the freight cars. Sir Topham Hatt and Bertie screeched to a halt and waited for them near the top. The hill slowed the freight cars right down to a standstill. Mrs. Kindly had the first ride on the carousel. You were quite right, Thomas, James whispered. Making someone happy does cheer you up. Then together they watched the fun of the fair. Help! Help! Called Toad again. Toad saw some buffers. Those'll stop me! But the points to the buffers weren't set. No! I'm back on the main line! Meanwhile, Oliver was racing to the rescue. I must catch Toad. I must! Toad sped past Henry. More danger lay ahead. Men were working on a bridge, but they had been warned about the runaway Toad and his freight cars. They diverted him onto old sidings, straight into a muddy pool. Duncan whistled, and the sound echoed everywhere. Then, ahead, he saw flickering lights. His driver knew they were only insects that shine brightly at night, but to Duncan they looked like an engine. Next, his driver secretly threw a rock from the cab into the ravine below. It's the ghost! Take me back! Take me back, please! When Sir Topham Hatt inspected the damage, he decided to close the mine. Then he looked at Boulder. We should have left this part of the island alone. They moved Boulder to a hill close by the yards. Rusty is sure that on a clear night it is gazing up at the mountain and that its sighs are being carried on the wind to where it once used to stand proud and silent. I wonder if Rusty is right. Don't you? The men had just cleared the snow away from him when Gordon puffed by with his machine.
Hey, look out! There's snow about!
He stopped by the tunnel and wheezed loudly. Then it happened.
Oh no.
Help! Cried Gordon. If Skarloey survived a snowfall, surely a big proud engine like you can do the same, chuckled Thomas. Paw! Moaned Gordon from within, and then fell as silent as the snow.
Alright then, now that we finished Season 5, we're ready to move on to Season 6, the first season of the short-lasted Gull Lane era from 2002 through 2003, and it's also the second and last season to be narrated by Alec Baldwin for American releases. Well, even though I prefer Alec Baldwin for both Seasons 5 and 6, I can see why his narrations was toned down in Season 6, and it was due to that painful divorce with Kim Basinger on the exact same year Season 6 was in production. Pretty sad to think about, isn't it? But regardless, at least Baldwin still had some energy in some of the episodes from this season, like Scaredy Engines, James and the Red Balloon, Thomas and the Jet Engine, and of course, the Jack and the Pack episodes. Also, this season introduced us to some new characters such as Salty the Dockyard Diesel, Harvey the Crane Engine, Elizabeth the Vintage Lorry, and of course, Jack and the Sodor Construction Pack. Okay, off we go. Time to start ranking the episodes from the first season produced in the 2000s, which was of course my generation as a kid.
I like working to a musical rhythm, he said. And so do the trucks. Why don't you give it a try, me hearties? Here we go, here we go, here we go. No we don't, no we don't, no we don't. But try as they might, Bill and Ben could not move the trucks the way Salty could. Later that day, Sir Topham Hatt came to the quarry. He was surprised to see the job had been completed. Harvey soon arrived and went to work. In no time, Percy was back on the tracks. The gentlemen of the railway board were very impressed. "'Twas in the middle of a wee naughty storm," Salty began. "The likes of which you see once in a lifetime." This made Cranky very cranky, so cranky that he swung his arm around and dropped the pipes onto the tracks instead of the trucks. "Whoops," said Cranky meekly. "You've blown the main now, matey," said Salty. The engines were trapped. "You're gonna get into trouble," sang Bill and Ben. "Watch out for those trees, Harold," cried his pilot. "My net is too heavy," wailed Harold. "Harold is in trouble," Percy cried. "We must try to help him." "Are you all right?" called Percy. "Just get someone to pull me out of this haystack," sputtered Harold, and Percy did, as fast as he could. Elizabeth was making awful grinding sounds. "She's not built for hills," he said anxiously. "You're losing steam," he called. "Just catching my breath," Elizabeth chuffed. And finally, she made it. When Elizabeth returned with Thomas's coupling rods, she was pleased with herself. "And next time, don't be so careless," she scolded. "Leave it to me," called a voice from the fog. "It's Cyril," said Thomas. "I hope he's in time." Toby and his coach Henrietta were chuffing along. Toby was looking forward to a well-earned drink at the next station when... "Fog detonators," puffed Toby. "There must be fog ahead," said his driver. "We better slow down." And just around the next bend, with his axle still tingling, Toby was very glad they did. Otherwise, they would have crashed into Thomas's wreck. Then the foreman shouted, "Oliver, move this rock." "I'll do it," cried Jack. Jack scooped a bucket full of rock. "Stop!" shouted his oiler. But he didn't stop. He was too eager to help. No! Shouted Isabella. But it was too late. Oh no! He cried. Whoops! Jack sputtered. Thomas saw the flagman. His driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. Cinders and ashes, cried Thomas. Jack didn't let go. Finally, Thomas's driver backed Thomas to safety. Hold on, Jack, called Kelly, and he rushed to help. Jack couldn't hold the bridge any longer. Are you all right, Jack? I think so. It wasn't easy without a snowplow, but Thomas was determined. He pushed, and he pushed, and he pushed. Thomas was trying as hard as he could, but there was just one snowdrift after another. Finally, Thomas and Toby were pulling into the village station. Thomas whistled and the villagers cheered when they saw their beautiful tree. Hooray, they said, hooray! Donald could see the cart. Stop, he cried. Donald's driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. Luckily, no one was hurt. Stop being pushy, Donald snapped. Don't call me pushy, Douglas snapped back. You shouldn't have pushed me into the cart, huffed Donald. You pulled me, you mean, argued Douglas. Didn't. Did. Did not. Did too. Heave ho, you can pull, but we won't go, sang the trucks. This made Diesel very cross. He pulled, and he pulled, and he pulled. Help! Grease and oil, Diesel sulked, as the trucks laughed and laughed. Ghost whistle, said Thomas, and he raced away as fast as his wheels could carry him. The ghost engine is after me! It was naughty of Thomas to tease you, Percy, said Duck. He was only playing, said Percy. I hope he hurries up. I wouldn't want him to be late for the fireworks. He's after me! I don't think he'll be late, said Duck. Suddenly, another building at the old mine sank into the ground. What was that? Shouted his driver. Double bouncing buffers, shrieked Percy. He was so scared, he lurched forward and rammed the freight car. Naughty gnomes, cried Percy. He steamed away faster than before, all the way back to Lower Tidmouth Station. James cheerfully backed up to his freight cars. He was certain he had fooled Harry and Bert, but he was wrong. Little red piggy in the middle, chortled Harry. Just like Percy, jeered Bert. I am not like Percy, huffed James. I'm not a middle engine, and I'm not moving. And he didn't. We're out of hot air! Shouted a voice. Ah! Cried James. What's happening? Crash, bang, wallop went the balloon and landed right on top of James. He was so scared, he let out a huge burst of steam blew the balloon up again. The balloon rose into the air once more. "Well done, James," called his driver. "Your hot air did the trick." "Scary Jack Frost," he whispered nervously. "Bah!" "Hello, James," muttered Percy icily. "Scary Jack Frost," cried James, and he raced away as fast as his wheels could carry him. He didn't stop until he got back to the sheds. The branch line couldn't take his weight, and the rails buckled. "Oh, help!" Gordon cried as he slid off the tracks and into a field. No one was hurt, but poor Gordon felt very undignified. "What will Sir Topham Hatt say?" he groaned. When he approached the chocolate factory, his driver applied the brakes. But Percy's wheels just skidded on the oily rails. "Oh no!" hooted Percy. "Yuck!" he groaned. "I've never been this dirty." He was covered from funnel to firebox in sticky, gooey chocolate. Poor Bill, he works, he suffers, while Ben, his twin, gets brand new buffers. "I might not have new buffers," he said, "but I still know how to biff troublesome trucks." "No!" Mavis cried. But it was too late. Ben puffed into the quarry with his shiny new buffers just in time to hear, "Bust my buffers!" cried Bill. "I think you have," said Ben. The farmer was waiting. It was very cold. Suddenly, a ghostly glowing eye shone through the snowstorm. It was Toby's headlamp. "You made it!" cried the farmer. "What a brave engine you are!" The vet and the farmer went to find the lambs. But they soon returned. "The lambs are safe and sound, Toby," said the vet. "But we need a place now to keep the little ones warm." Toby smiled. "I think you'll find Henrietta has plenty of room." Sir Topham Hatt held Clarabelle's door open when a mouse! Alicia Body screamed. And she screamed and she screamed and she screamed. She screamed so loud and so long that windows broke all over town. "Definitely a coloratura," said Gordon. "I am the fastest," said Gordon proudly. "Bye, Gordon. Bye, Gordon." Gordon could not believe what he had seen. At last, the jet engine ran out of fuel, and Thomas was back under his own power. He steamed gently back into Knapford Station. Edward was excited. He was going to be the back engine for 2 trains. Edward cheerfully buffered up and the strange train set off. They chuffed gently into the station. Rusty returned to see Duncan being pulled up the incline. "I tried to warn him," said Rusty. "He never listens," the little diesel's driver said. The chain pulling Duncan's slate cars couldn't hold the weight. It suddenly snapped. Duncan plummeted down the incline. "Help!" he yelled.
Glug, glug, glug,
he said.
"Bluggle my broiler."
"It requires hauling," said Rusty. "I can haul," said Elizabeth. "And pulling heavy branches," added Rusty. "Well, of course I can pull." "So you'll do it," said Rusty. "Well, of course," said Elizabeth proudly. Elizabeth was as good as her word. She hauled rubbish and pulled branches from the line. She helped remove a fallen sycamore tree from the cattle creep. "Thank you, Elizabeth," said Rusty. "We couldn't have done it without you." "I know," said Elizabeth proudly. Duncan steamed quietly back to the junction as the headmaster played the organ. "Look," Rusty teased, "it's Duncan the musical engine." "Let's whistle along," said Rheneas. Whistled Skarloey.
Okay, now that we finished the 2 seasons narrated by Alec Baldwin, we'll be ready to move on to Season 7 in the next and final part of this video. Also, let's play Alec Baldwin's last lines as Thomas narrator.
"Or an organ," chuckled the headmaster, and he tooted the organ. And all the engines tooted back, except Duncan, who just grinned.
You have been a great narrator, Alec Baldwin. Alright everyone, one more season to go for the classic era, so stay tuned until the final part of this video is uploaded.